So now there's some ability at the high school level to have some NIL.
The law does say once you sign your national letter of intent or you're accepted to a college, your answer is yes.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Coaches in the Mouth. This is Coach Jeff Williams along with Coach Bray Cook, the Mouth Brent Bender. Guys, got a big guest on today a little bit to educate us. We're going to get educated today a little bit. We've been on the show talking about NIL and, what's the rules and who can do this and, when can a kid get paid in high school or not and those things. So we're going to bring the guy on that wrote it, the NIL for the state of Arkansas. Speaker of the House from Union County, Mr. Matthew Shepard, along with the AAA Executive President, Lance Taylor. Bray, I mean, you're in the thick of things, and we've been having this discussion, and Brent and all of us. What do you want to hear from these guys? What do you want to get educated? What's the answers you are looking to find out about?
Well, like you said, I'm going to take notes. It's such a new and interesting frontier where on one side of it, you see all these college coaches kind of losing their minds over what the game has become. I mean, Saban just retired, I would argue, somewhat probably because of this. And on the other hand, everything trickles downhill a little bit, and it's almost as if high school football is next. And what can you do? What can't you do? And what do we want to allow come into our sport?
Yeah, and what's best for the game also. Mouth, what are you looking forward to hearing?
I'm looking forward to hearing Matthew's opinion on how can we govern what NILs you can spend. I mean, are we going to get to a point where we have a czar of college football or we set a salary cap for all the major conferences of how much each team can spend? Because right now, the schools that have the money, they're the ones that's going to be getting the good players, and the schools that don't have big NIL pockets, they're going to be losing ground quicker than ever.
Well, it is, and like I said, I was listening to Joe Klatt on the way over here, and he started naming the top receiver, top defensive lineman. And they're not going, some of them are not going to your Alabamas, Georgia, USC, the marquee brands, Michigan, Ohio State. A lot of them are going to Maryland or, to Texas Tech or something, and it's all about the NIL deal, what kind of deals they're getting. And I don't know if it's a level playing field or not, but I'm with you. I think eventually they're going to have to look at things with salary cap and things like that. But I'm more interested in see, how this all came about, who was all involved in writing this law. And then, obviously then they changed it in 2023 and try to update it if they're going to continue to update it. Well, let's don't mess around anymore. Let's go ahead and get them on our BSN guest, Speaker of the House, Matthew Shepard, Executive Director of the Arkansas Activity Association, Lance Taylor. Hey, let's get into this, Matthew, this NIL deal. We were talking here before we started. Talk to us about the whole process because, there's a lot of people here in NIL, kids getting paid in college and it's, some places it's happening in high school. I don't know. And in that part of it. But talk to us when this all hit. I remember back, I guess about 2020, it comes out the NIL deal, and really nobody knew how it was going to work, how it was going to look, and you had to jump into the process. So talk to us a little bit about how that process started, how you were involved, and just all the details, ins and outs of it.
Yeah. So first off, Jeff and Bray, it's good to be with you guys today. Appreciate y'all having me on. Look forward to talking about NIL. But if you want to talk about old Jeff Williams stories from El Dorado, we can do that. Yes. But
there's a few of them out there.
You go back to, like you said, Jeff, it was probably 2020 is when this really became kind of a front burner issue. And if you guys will recall, Congress was actually looking to try and address NIL at the college level, and they just weren't able to get it done. And so around 2020, as we're leading up to the 2021 session, I started working with primarily folks at the University of Arkansas, but the other colleges, some of our other colleges were involved, some other legislators were involved, because what we were seeing is that other states were starting to look at it and take it up. And, we were one of the first to pass it, one of the first few states to pass it, but we delayed the implementation a little bit because we wanted some time to try and make sure that everybody had their ducks in a row. But I tell people, in a perfect world, I wish that we weren't having to deal with this. But the fact of the matter is that everybody else, this is where the world was going. And in order for us to be competitive at any of our schools in the state of Arkansas, we had to have some way to participate in NIL for our student athletes too. Otherwise, we were going to be so far behind recruiting wise. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you see the U of A and others were the university was very involved and worked with us and put this together. And we felt like in 21, it was a good bill, had strong support across the board. And then in 23, back, just almost a year ago, we came back and amended it, expanded it a little bit. So now there is some ability at the high school level to have some NIL. But that's really what kind of brought it to the forefront. Maybe at some point Congress will step in and act, and then we'll have some uniformity across the country. But for right now, it's really a state by state basis, and it's in some ways we tried to, at least for the collegiate level, we tried to have legislation both in 21 and then what we amended in 23 to give our colleges the best opportunity to compete, because that's really what it is. This is in part is trying to allow our colleges to be able to recruit student athletes and our student athletes to be able to take advantage of name, image, and likeness, just like the others are across the country.
Well, let me ask you this, and you talked about changing it in 23, where I think when they sign a scholarship, they actually could get paid. I think I'm correct on that, sign a letter of intent if they're in the state of Arkansas. Talk to me, because you're looking in Arkansas is kind of different. Everybody kind of looks at the University of Arkansas number one, but you're talking Arkansas State, UCA, and Ouachita Baptist, Henderson State, Harding, all that kind of SAU. Did you get all those people together, or did you have a representative from everybody?
No, it was more of I would say more of a U of A, ASU, and to some degree UCA was in the loop. But really those were the ones that, because it's obviously in the when you look at FBS or Division I in basketball or FBS in football, that's where it becomes really it's not just a state issue, it's you're competing across the country. But we were also mindful that whatever we were doing was going to have implication for all levels of college athletics. But we had, when 21, Coach Pittman came down and testified for our bill, Coach Neighbors, Coach Musselman. Of course, Hunter has been down several times to testify. And then in 23, I'm trying to think, I know that Hunter came down and testified for that one as well. And we had the AD both times from ASU come down. And so we had good support. It was good support from both the U of A and ASU, which was important. And that's why you saw it pass just with such a large margin. I don't even think there was any opposition really.
Well, let's hit this too. And you hit 2023. So you go in there kind of blind nil early on, and everybody was. I was kind of had somebody in that process, and it's so much different than when it started to what it is now. Talk to us a little bit about, you look back at 23, you're looking at other states and comparing. How do we compare NIL with our bill compared to Missouri, compared to Tennessee, to bordering Louisiana? Is ours different? How does that look?
So it's hard to say, but I think everybody kind of takes a little bit from other places. What I would say is that when we drafted ours, it was really designed to be, what can we do that is best for our student athletes and our institutions of higher education. And then in 23, when we amended it, we cleaned it up some. And one of the reasons that we modified it to allow it to there to be some opportunity in high school is that one of the things we were concerned about is, let's say you had somebody in the state of Arkansas, and under the 21 bill, you had to be in college. I think you had to be enrolled, I think was the language, in order for you to participate in NIL. But let's say you're somebody, let's say that you were committed to a school out of state that allowed for NIL across the board, even into high school. So what our concern was is that you might have other schools that were coming in. I think, secondhand, I understand this was happening. Now, I've not, this isn't firsthand.
It is happening. We'll go ahead and put it out there. Don't fake it. It was happening.
But the deal was like, hey, if you'll commit and come down to a school out of Arkansas, we can go ahead and start getting you some NIL money. Whereas if you're staying in state, you can't. So that's why we had to. One of the reasons we dropped that down to provide that now, if you have signed a letter of intent, or if you've been accepted, or you've signed some other type of an agreement to enroll, now even as a high school student, you are able to take advantage of NIL opportunities.
Well, Lance, let's hit over to you a little bit. I'm sitting in Nashville, Tennessee last year at the National ADs Convention. I roll in with my suitcase, throw it down. Of course, I'm going to put the TV on, look for a little Pat McAfee going on or something like that. And the news hits and says, it's been passed, NIL for high school kids in Tennessee. And I went, wow. And I think you were at the conference and they had a bunch of stuff about it. When you heard that, what was your first thought? Because you were there. And then how does that look with it comparing to other states? Your thoughts?
It shocked me, to tell you the truth, Jeff. And I think we went to that NIL meeting together. I think we said, yes, we did. And trying to learn, because it wasn't really made for us. I still think high school is education-based activities. It always has been. And it's not a right to play, it's a privilege to play in high school. And so we're really the last amateur level that there is. So it did worry me. We've had a lot of meetings from all 50 states, have an association like us across the country, and we meet twice a year. So there's been a lot of talk about it still. It still scares us because we don't know where we're going yet, especially in high school. There's not TV contracts worth millions of dollars where they're giving the high schools $30 million a piece. That's just not going to happen on our level. So we also want to protect on our level and make sure, and both of y'all played high school, both of y'all's coach, you want to walk out on that field and feel like you've got a level playing field. And you don't want that field tilted one way or the other, even if you're on top, because again, it's high school and it's community based. And again, it's education based activities that we have. So we're still studying it. It's because some states have a law like Texas. I don't think they passed one, or they ran one last year. It didn't pass the legislature down there, but it was for 18 years or older. And the reason why, because once you're a minor, that's a whole different thing than when you're over 18. And so the parents have to be involved, and a lot more has to happen. So again, I think most states are just kind of seeing what's going to happen right now, kind of still waiting see what Congress does, just like the speaker said about collegiate, to make it fair for everybody, because as you know, the coaches y'all talk to on the college level, they don't think it's fair. And I think that's a big worry. And we don't want that down in our level. But we also want to make sure we treat kids right and do right and teach them the life skills. That's what we think they get out of activities on our level. And hopefully y'all think the same thing, from perseverance, hard work, teamwork, all those things that we preach that'll be a life lesson, because both of y'all know only 98% of our kids, after their last game is over, they're finished. Now, they might play rec or something like that, but again, so we're more education-based than, of course, the collegiate level, and both of y'all know that.
All right, Bray.
Well, it's such an interesting topic, and like y'all said, it's changing, and we're right. It's new, so we're kind of figuring this thing out. But like you said, 98% of these kids are not going to go on, to that next level. So when I look at the NIL and in the terms of high school, for me, it's almost an opportunity for kids to maybe get involved with a business that is maybe a career path for them, something they're interested in. I've got an athlete, very talented. I'm not sure if he's going to get to go to the next level. Great kid. Is there an opportunity for him to maybe get connected with, he wants to be a dentist one day. Is there maybe a high school NIL situation where if he's enrolled in college, can he have some kind of deal with a dentistry in town and represent them in a commercial or something like that? I'm just thinking as a high school coach, how can I get these opportunities for my kids?
Bray, right now with commercials like that, as long as the kid's not getting paid right now, they can be in commercials. They can. So again, it's just not, they can't receive any benefits doing it. So our rules are a little bit different. They can be in commercials. And they can represent somebody like that dentist and learn those skills and be ready for college and be ready for after college. But again, right now they can't receive benefits until if they sign I think what the legislature, our legislature put in, there's like 3 lines. And of course, the speaker's more in tune to this with I am. But right now, what it says, once you sign your national letter of intent or you have been accepted to college, then you can start receiving NIL on our level, getting ready for it because you've already signed your national letter of intent, you're going to college. And so that helps them get ready to go ahead and get ready to start benefiting from the NIL on that level.
Okay. So just following what you just said, if I've got that young man who wants to be a dentist someday, maybe he does have a walk-on opportunity at a smaller school in Arkansas. If he's accepted into that school, can he then make that commercial and make a little bit of money off of it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, because that's what the law says, and the speaker can help us with that too. But again, I think what it says, and he's more an expert because he wrote it and worked with a lot of people, and he's been very good to us. I want y'all both to understand, because we're trying to protect our level, our amateurism, especially on our level. Okay, that's trying to make it level and keep kids in their own community and play for their own school. So that's part of it. But again, I think the law does say once you sign your national letter of intent or you're accepted to a college, which you can only do as a senior because y'all both know you got to have a transcript to be accepted. So once that happens, your answer is yes.
Wow.
Matthew,
go ahead.
I think it has to be. I think that you have to been accepted, sign a letter of intent, or sign some other type of agreement to enroll. I think it's the language, and I believe it has to be with a university in the state of Arkansas. But so it did when we made that change, it did provide some opportunity. Now, people need to keep in mind if you have state law, but then you got the AAA over here, and so there was a period of time after we passed it that then the AAA came, that made AAA rules on amateurism didn't necessarily mesh, but Lance and the AAA came back and they came up with some language, and I think they had adopted it, that he and I talked about it a bit, about making sure that the AAA rules mirror state law so that you can fully take advantage of that opportunity.
Let me ask you this, Matthew, just so I get clear. Say at Pea Ridge or whatever, I signed a scholarship to Auburn, but I'm not graduating until May. Do I get paid then, since I'm leaving the state, or I got to stay in state?
Well,
get paid.
I think that the statute refers to being enrolled or accepted to an institution in Arkansas. Now, you could get into. There's probably some discussion about, well, does Alabama's law apply to you at that point? I mean, that was part of the deal that we were trying to work through. So, I mean, that's a good example of there could be some stills. There's still some probably gray areas out there that folks, you're having to work through, and that things have been, that's why we had to make some changes in 23 coming out of 21. One of the things we put in there that is we also made it against the law to interfere with an NIL agreement. And one of the thought on that is that if you've got an NIL agreement, that we don't want other schools coming in and trying to interfere or outbid an agreement that's already in place. And so that's kind of an example of how the law is, at least in Arkansas, but every state, it's kind of evolving over time. And then I've read or heard that like some states are kind of getting away from even the specifics to just trying to make it where it's just kind of wide open, because again, there's an element, particularly when it comes to college athletics, that it's competitive, certainly across the South, but across the country when you start looking state to state.
Well, it's funny. I was listening to Joe Klatt today, and went through the top offensive line, the top quarterback, and all this deal, and they're not really going to the big powers. They're going to other places just because they get a better NIL deal, and which is I don't blame them.
I think that, and Lance and I talked about this earlier, that and I've said this every time in committee. I've said it tonight. Like, it would have suited me fine for everything to stay the way it had always been, and not have to worry about the money and all that. But the fact is, that's where everything's been heading for a lot of reasons. There's court cases and other things out there. But, I think when you look to college athletics, the real thing that has probably made it created kind of this greater upheaval is not NIL on its own, but it's NIL then with the transfer portal. And that's one of the things that, particularly at the high school level, I know there's some folks that want to go full NIL at the high school level or whatever. And then there's always issues about transfers, right? Even at high school. Every year there's questions, there's going to be issues that arise. And so that's something that for me, I think Lance would agree, is trying to be mindful of how those things could potentially interact, because, with the transfer portal at the college level with NIL, that's what's created this almost a free agency type situation. Fortunately, right now at the high school level, we don't have that situation. But, if you make some changes here or there, and I know, Jeff, you and some other coaches were there at the state capitol back in the spring to try and help us to kind of keep some things in place to try and protect against that. But I think that's one of the things that people need to be aware of, and that sometimes people want to talk about NIL, or they think, oh, we got to do this or do that. Well, you got to look at what else is going on, because that, in combination with making changes on transfers and other things, could really change a lot of things and make the landscape for high school athletics vastly different.
There's no doubt. We, of course, our show, we got a lot of college guys on here, and it's funny. We had Tim Horton, who's at Air Force, and he's loving life because he don't have to deal with it. But every one of those guys, it's a 365, and you're on vacation. Hey, you got to get back. We got a guy. I was talking to a coach the other night on the phone for 15 minutes. He got off the phone with me twice because he got a portal guy and he's got to get him NIL money. It's crazy. Lance, let's go back with you a little bit. And you've been around a long time. You've seen all kinds of changes through the whole process. It's kind of both of you. What do you see? And if you got a crystal ball here, what do you see 3 or 4 years down the road? Where do you think this thing's coming? Everybody's talking about, we got to put a time limit on portal, which that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. But NIL, where do you see this deal? Do you think, Matthew, you're going to have to go back and reword it or do something different? Where do you see, if you got a crystal ball, where do you see this thing coming in 3 or 4 years? Matthew, you go first, and Lance, you follow up.
I'm not very good at predicting, but I think that the pressure is I think that undoubtedly the pressure is going to be there to continue to expand. There's folks that want to open it, open NIL wide open in high school athletics. My thing is, I I just hope that we can be very careful and think through, because once you kind of go down that road, it's really hard to then move back the other direction. And, again, I think that thinking about it in terms of not just NIL, but anything else that changes with regard to high school athletics, and whether it's transfers or other things, I think all that factors into it, because if it was just an NIL discussion, that might be easier to deal with. But the fact is that now you've got a lot of different things just at play that, high school athletics, you guys know, I mean, it certainly has been elevated. It's always been a big deal, but it just seems like it continues to grow, and in some cases kind of almost even rivals college athletics at some places, and just in terms of interest. So, I think there continue to be some pressure there, but what I hope is that we'll just be deliberate, talk with parents, talk with coaches, educators, get feedback, and just like we've done with from a college perspective, and trying to, and working with the U of A and ASU and a lot of different folks to try to come up with something that makes sense.
I agree. I think that's why the AAA is so lucky to have somebody like the speaker in that position that he's in right now, because again, I think you got to be very careful not to ruin what we have right now, because y'all both know and y'all both experience it. It's really good. It's really good for kids, and it's really good to get kids involved. And I'm going to, I take that education base, because if they're involved, folks, and y'all know this, they're going to have a higher GPA. They're going to have a higher ACT test. They're going to be a less discipline problem. You just go on and on and on, and the benefits they receive. And again, 98% of them are never going to play past high school. So again, I think we want to make sure we look at it and we examine it, like the speaker said, because again, it's very important for a lot of kids to be involved. And we want to keep, that's one thing we harp on in our office, get more kids involved. And it doesn't matter what it is. It can be band, choir, esports, bowling. All that is important to those kids, and we've got to keep it out there. So again, they think they have a level playing field whenever they step out on any kind of court or any kind of event that they're involved in. So again, we're very lucky to have the speaker heading this and making sure that we're looking ahead and keeping the interests of all kids involved.
Well, you hit it, and you got to use common sense. At the end of the day, it's common sense. And I think we live in a world where, everybody's kind of a little bit about themselves and things like that, but we got to do what's best for kids. At the end of the day, that's what Correct. I know you're here, he's here. We're all here for is what's best for kids, and not necessarily what's best for adults. You know what I'm saying? And in that part of it, Bray, you got any questions?
Man, hit all of it. It's an exciting topic, and like you said, it's important to respect the game that we play and are able to coach and work with every single day. And what an exciting challenge! It's fun to sit here and think about, though, if all the old linemen could get free rights, for the rest of their life, and they would. But I know I would. But whole different ball game.
One of the things, I'll just say this is occasionally, just because my name's been associated with it, I'll get calls from parents or coaches or others. And, one of the things that I think is important, and for any student athlete or parent out there that's thinking about this, is what I would say is, look, you gotta be communicating with your coach, your athletic director, and then beyond that, even and the AAA, but then beyond that, with the way the law is written, to Bray's question about, well, what if you signed out of state? Well, I mean, and I was looking at it again here in front of me. I mean, it's drafted to where it really is focused on you've signed or accepted to an Arkansas institution. So that's kind of another area. If you're going out of state, then that, that's going to get into some stuff about, well, does their state law apply? And then that may not match up real well with AAA rules. And so people just got to be very careful in that area, even with what's in place, because there's a lot of opportunities to, kind of trip up along the way. And the last thing anybody wants is to, jeopardize their eligibility or cause them to forfeit some games or other things like that. So,
last question, this for you, Matthew, and you kind of hit on it. Do you think other states? Let's just throw it out there. College football is so competitive. I mean, it's a big money maker. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you think other states are looking at other people's bill to try to benefit them? I mean, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think other states are. I think people are looking at other states. I think certainly the higher education institutions are looking at each other. I mean, those institutions are not to speak for them or whatever, but they're talking, right, and whether it's in DC or what else is going on. So I think that my focus was trying to do what UA, U of A, and ASU in particular, what they felt like was the right fit for them in terms of competitiveness. But undoubtedly, states are looking at each other, and so as people make changes, that's going to create that's going to cause other people to make changes. I mean, that's just the way it is, and that's why I think you see Commissioner Sankey and others that are really lobbying Congress to say, y'all have got to step in, because it's kind of an arms race a little bit, just in terms of how you legislate. Like I said, I think I was reading an article a month or two ago about a state that was like looking at maybe just repealing all of it and just saying you can do whatever, and just throwing it wide open. And so, yeah, I mean, undoubtedly folks are looking at each other and trying to take things. I mean, I think that just like I mentioned, the deal about you're not supposed to interfere in an NIL agreement. Undoubtedly other states are looking at that, and I'm sure we'll probably see that show up in somebody else's legislation at some point. Wow.
Well, Lance, you talk to, bordering states, other people in your position, other states. What's their thought process? Probably similar to yours, but and some of them got it. I mean, guys in Tennessee, bam, they got it in other places. What's their thought process, the ones that have it and the ones like us that don't have it, and where's the happy medium there, and what's the conversation there?
Well, again, I think when the speaker was talking about earlier, Jeff, when you take the NIL and then you take the transfer, well, we're kind of already leveled up the transfer probably pretty high, and other states have not. And so some of them have done NIL, but they're keeping their transfer because they don't want that to happen. So again, I think you can't have them both, because then that starts doing things that you don't want to happen, and kids not leaving for academics, but maybe for other reasons. And especially on our level, where not many are going to play on y'all's level, the one, especially Bray, that you played on that high level. You want kids to, it's about education first. It's got to be at the high school level. It's amateur. And so again, we got to be very careful. And I think a lot of states are trying to pull back. And I think the speaker was very honest with y'all earlier. It's hard to pull back when you've already let it out. And so I think that's why we got to just go slow. Change is going to happen. Change always happens, guys. Everything's changed, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean you have to be out front when you don't know what's going to happen. You kind of want to know what's happened so you can control everything out there. And I think that's where we are right now. We want to do it right when we have to do it.
Matthew, then I'll get you guys off here. Do you think, nationally they'll end up being one NIL rules and not state to state, or they don't want to deal with it and just toss it back to you guys?
Yeah. I think that's what folks hope Congress will do, at least at the collegiate level. I don't know that I'm certainly no expert on it. Not that I deal with the NCAA, but what you kind of hear is that maybe the NCAA is probably not in the strongest position to be able to legislate it. So I think if it's going to happen, it's going to have to come from Congress. And I think that's what a lot of people were hoping for 3 years ago or 4 years ago. It didn't happen, and it got kind of put on the back burner. You're starting to see more and more people again going back to DC trying to advocate. So I think that in terms of leveling the playing field and helping college athletics to be having parity and competitiveness across the board, that would probably be the best thing that could happen. Now, what would that look like with regard to high school NIL? Because that's a different scenario. We could do, I think probably there would still be some ability for each state to kind of do their own thing, because they're not really competing across state lines, they're not, I guess they do to some degree, but it's not the same as when you're talking about collegiate athletics. So I think that's the thing to watch, is just what happens at in the Congress. And, is there some agreement reached there? Because if it's going to happen, that's where it's going to have to come from.
I got you. Well, this is probably the most important question I'm going to ask you, Matthew, of the day is, how's the Wildcats going to be next year?
We're going to be much improved. I think
right.
So.
Young team last year.
Very
young team.
Very, very young team. Played a lot of young guys. We even had Lance came down to a game.
Hey,
I got him
talking about Memorial Stadium, buddy. He doesn't like it.
He was on the radio we need to get you to come back to an El Dorado game.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. If these people let me out of work for a couple of days, I'd love to come down there. Still working for a living, man. Still working for a living over here.
Yeah,
but
we're gonna be improved. We're not too far removed from a state championship. We need to get back there, right?
That's right. Because flying underneath the radar, buddy. Flying underneath the radar. I like it. We'll keep quiet. No noise down there. I like it. Well, guys, hey, we appreciate you coming on and appreciate you educating us, because there's just like you talk, I get phone calls, Brave and Bray sit over and talk, and we get people on here that, when they hear NIL, all the things just paying players, and it's just, just happening all the time, and get their people educated on what the rules are, how it works, and that part. And we really appreciate your time. And, hey, we'll probably have you back on here again, man.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
guys.
both. Thank you.
Yes, sir. See you, man. Man, what an education. We're going through that, and there's things I thought I knew, and I was pretty in tune to what was going on, and just learning way that thing was built and how they've had to change it, and comparing to other states. What'd you get out of it, Bray?
Well, them talking about what they had to allow for high schools to already kind of have when they built the law, in order for these kids who are going to the U of A to get some NIL started. There's room in there for high schools to dip in a little bit on this, and it's who's going to be the first.
Yep. Brent, you're all involved in it, man. You're the NIL guy right there, buddy.
I don't know. NIL has opened up a whole new can of worms, and I'm just impressed that Matthew Shepard, a man from El Dorado, I've known forever, I'm impressed that he's the one Speaker of the House of our state of Arkansas, and he's the one that is the author of the NIL bill. That makes me feel like we're in really good hands with the state of Arkansas and NIL.
There's no doubt. And you hit with Matthew a little bit. He's got a athletic background and good common sense, and understands it's very involved in high school athletics and college athletics and follows things. And, having him there doing that with somebody with common sense, makes me sleep better at night too, and everything. But, that was a great, I hope every coach in Arkansas needs to watch this podcast because of that. Well, Bray, let's get off here real quick. Subscribers, followers, we're booming up a little bit. Well, hey, we've got to keep rolling, make this thing happen. Once again, let's get everybody on board. Let's talk about our merch a little bit.
The merch is up. Coach, the hoodie, the joggers, the stickers, they're online. So those are out for the people. The people asked for it. We delivered. We'll continue to grow those things as products get requested. You want a T-shirt? We'll put a T-shirt up there as well.
Well, talk to us about where they can find us in that part of it.
The subscribes, the likes are huge. We are on YouTube as Coaches in the Mouth. On X, we are Coaches Pod. You search either one of those two things, you'll find us. Our full episodes are on YouTube. They're also on X. Also going to start pushing out to Facebook. You can find us on any social media that you're looking for us.
Well, great show again, men. We'll be back in action next week.
Yes.
And I tell you what, that was a great education for everybody right there. Well, for Jeff Williams, Coach Bray Cook, the mouth Brent Bender, we'll see you next time.